Hello viewer, and welcome to this program. This is the Bible Journey. Thank you for joining us today as we look at the book of Exodus chapter 39. And of course, several lessons to learn here. Of course, we are still on with the actualization of what God instructed on the mount. And he said, make this, make that. And that is what we have been looking at from 37 up to this point. And we'll continue the same as we wind up on the Exodus season. And with me on set to help us in this analysis are our dear pastors. Pastor Peter Nyaga. Welcome, Pastor, to our discussion today.
Thank you so much, Ratamo.
And we also have with us Pastor Dan Abuya. Welcome, Pastor, today.
Thank you very much.
Wow. And on the right-hand side, we also have Pastor Kabira Wakabira. Welcome, Pastor.
Appreciate, thank you.
Now, we'll want to begin with the word of prayer, maybe from Pastor.
Our gracious Lord in heaven, this is chapter 39 of the book of Exodus. We've come a long way, and we thank you for the far that you've brought us. As we talk about how your work was carried out to the exactness, may we be of the same mind, so that, Lord, each and every day we may carry out your instructions as you've asked of us, for we pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. And of course, our dear viewer, you'll appreciate that now we are done with the various structures within the tabernacle. Now, there is something that we have not yet touched on, how it was actualized. Of course, we talked about it when the Lord was instructing and saying how to make them. But now, as we talk about actualization of the same, we haven't looked at that. And those are the priestly garments and all the things that go with that. So, pastors, you are welcome to our discussion today.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
we've gone through the making of the various structures. They have all been made. I don't know now, at this juncture, how do you see it as, how has it come out in the making of these structures, and of course, considering in mind the various, how they aided the worship service, Pastor Nyaga?
We appreciate so far that at least today now we are not dealing with the sanctuary, the fittings of the sanctuary. We are dealing with the priest. And we have seen how we started putting on the sanctuary, right from inside to outside. That was very, very important for us to see. We began with the altar. We came to the showbread. We came to the lampstands. We came to the
altar of burnt incense.
Yes, and then the laver, and then we came to the outer court. So having done all that fittings within the sanctuary, so now the person to serve, to facilitate the ministry in the sanctuary is now the one you're dealing with, and this is the priest. So now we are dealing with the garment of the priest, and after which we will be done with all that constituent. They are the sanctuary.
Pastor Dan.
Yeah, indeed. The same way that the articles of the tabernacle are made very precisely, quite distinctly for a purpose. Equally, the ministers in the tabernacle, they also had to portray the same, the same spirit, the same picture. The tenor, the tone, the mood equally had to comply. So that is why this particular chapter takes time to, give us the picture of how also it was done, so that the ministers in the tabernacle also stand dignified before the Lord whom they are serving. Right here.
Pastor Kabira, you have something to add, or we move on?
the articles, the temple begin, and then the priest and their garments come later. Perhaps it would have been, if it was within my power, I would say I will come first, then the temple and the rest will come later. You know, many of us,
the material runs out.
unfortunately, unfortunately, many of us think as ministers that sometimes we are the ones who open up a church. Nah, I don't think so, per se. According to this, is the church was made, then we came in to serve. You do not go and say, I think I can open up my own church.
No.
And then I will tell you what I will do. I don't know, I may be joking somehow, but I feel this is significant, especially for me. That I am there to serve in a church. You know, it's like Adam and Eve created, then they find what they were to do. They were not created first, and then they are now assigned duties from what they are seeing. And I feel like it's the same principle God is using continuously from during creation up to now. He says to me, John, there is a church that is somewhere. I want you to go and serve. He calls Aaron. Yes, he may have ordained them before and all that, but he first does the sanctuary. Then he says, now Aaron and your sons, there is a sanctuary that is here. I need you to minister to it. If he had ordained them before, I don't know what will have happened, but I feel it's significant that indeed the sanctuary begins first, and then the human beings. So in real essence, me, as a pastor, I will not even say I want to go begin my own church, because then that will be complete opposite of what maybe perhaps God. I don't know if it's significant, but I think it's very important, especially for me.
But Pastor, maybe I get more explanation on this in what you're saying, and maybe just to try and understand. I see Paul in the New Testament starting churches. He's called first, he goes out, Asia Minor and all the places he went to, and started churches. And even Moses, the way he was called without a congregation.
Maybe, I don't know, I would say not start church, but establish a congregation of the same church.
Oh, okay.
The church of Christ. You know, this church belongs to Christ. You cannot start another. You know, ideally, we're supposed to be like Ephesians 4, 1-4 says, same faith, one baptism, one. So if it is one, how do you begin something else? You cannot begin something. If you begin something else, then you'll be so lost away from. But anyway, I am wary of over-interpreting. As I'm saying is, I feel there was an emphasis in the priesthood coming first. Because its relevance, it's in, there is already an existing congregation. That is what I'm referring to. So as a pastor, I know I am relevant as long as there is there is a church, the church of God. Otherwise, if God does not have a church, I will not be a pastor. If there was no church pastor, if literally I will say like that. When we get to heaven, consider when we get to heaven, what happens? Will I still be needed as a pastor in heaven?
Not sure.
Something like that. But anyway, as I'm saying, I don't want us to over-interpret the Bible. I just felt that it was important. Sure, priesthood comes first. Comes later, comes later. So that you are now able to, with all your clothing, ephod, what does this?
Now this
the garments, this is for this. Now go in and serve.
Yeah, so you have these garments on, put them on for the purposes of ministering where?
Yes.
In the sanctuary.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in chapter 25, verse 4, the offerings for the sanctuary, it is rams, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen, and goat's hair. Now, if you realize, we've been talking about the rest, but we haven't talked on, we haven't seen on how these ones were in particular use. So that is why in chapter 39 we get a use of them, and 39 verse 1 says, of the blue, purple, and scarlet thread they made garments of ministry for ministering in the holy place, and made the holy garments for Aaron as the Lord had commanded. Now verse 2 to 7 is about the making of the ephod. Of course, let's first of all look at, give our comments on the making of the garments before we look at the ephod. And garments is only in verse 1, Pastor Dan.
No, those are the general. Now,
yeah, of course,
all of them combined.
All of them combined, but there
together.
is that apron.
The apron is the ephod. So like what I'm saying is that the verse 1 is now, it's kind of like the introductory remark here. Yeah. So they made all these garments. So those are the garments we are seeing now. They will be itemized from the ephod, you know, the breastplate, the sash, and so on, the inner tunics. Yeah. So in a way, the verse 1, it's a general, all of them together. That now, this material, these threads of purple, blue, you know, and scarlet, they are now the material. That is the material we use to make now the garments for the priest. All of them were made out of this material. So the first is the ephod.
The ephod.
Yeah. And
and of course, which it says he made the ephod of gold.
Just
blue.
before you read, can I say garments of ministry?
right.
Yeah.
I just
of
love
course.
that sentence. You know, garments of ministry.
Particularly the purpose.
These clothes were for ministry, for ministry purposes. It's not just
The
for
priesthood
to look
ministry.
good. It's not to be different. They had, as we saw last time, and we'll see, every cloth had a purpose. It was not just a random wearing of clothes, you know, to look grander, you know, to look better than, you know, or classes. The whole point was it. For I just love that part is they made garments of ministry. The sole purpose of those garments, even
Was-
for, as I wear a suit, should be for ministry.
Wow, thank you. Now,
Love
verse
that, yeah.
2, he made the ephod of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. And they beat the gold into thin sheets and cut it into threads, and to work it in with the blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and the fine linen into artistic design. They made shoulder straps for it to couple it together. It was coupled together as at its two edges, and the intricately woven band of his ephod was that was on it was of the same workmanship, woven of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And they set onyx stones enclosed in settings of gold. They were engraved as signet are engraved with the names of the sons of Israel. He put them on the shoulders of the ephod as memorial stones for the sons of Israel, as the Lord had commanded Moses.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the ephod is it is like is it apron or vest or vest?
Yeah,
A
vest.
The vestment,
Yes.
yeah. So hanging on the shoulder, and as we are told, the onyx stones are now set there, of course, to represent each of the tribe or of Israel. Yeah. So, and in each of this stone was written the names of the sons of Israel. That is the 12 tribes here. So this, as we had seen in an earlier episode, it is the priest is carrying the burden.
Yes.
You know, he's carrying
Shoulders.
the challenges, the issues. You are carrying the people, if I could say. Yeah, you know, use that literal sense. You are carrying the people and all their issues, their burdens, their requests, they are upon you, upon your shoulder. And similar, you know, as we are going to see also even the breastplate there earlier. So it signified that as you go into minister, you represent literally, that is actually the meaning of the priest. You bring the people before the Lord. As a prophet brings God before the people. So you represent, you mediate, you intercede, you're an in-between or a bridge between the people and God. So once again, of course, what embraces with this particular vestment is it is particularity. It's very particular, it is very precise, just as the way I'd ordered, God had ordered. Nothing misses, because it is laden with significance and meaning. And so I'm glad they complied.
Wow, wow.
Right,
Pastor
yeah.
Nyaga.
Yeah, the only thing I can mention here is that I see God stepping up the priest or the designated person as a priest to be distinct from the rest of the congregation. I think we have seen God who is making a lot of distinctions in so many things. And significantly, that as he looks unique from outside, it is intended that is unique from inside.
Right.
So that now he fits in the position of the mediator. So because he stands between people and God as a priest. And of course Aaron as the high priest. So that's what I'm looking at it. It was a way of God telling people, when you see this man dressed this way, the uniqueness with this dress is not, no one else was supposed to have such a dress. So that they can identify with this person who now is supposed to teach them to identify with a God who is unique, not like those other gods. And so because he stands in between them and God, then you can start relating with the uniqueness of God, and then that can start teaching them some reverence before the Lord, and also seriousness that, when we appear before the Lord, indeed there is God. And our needs can be taken care of in terms of, issues of to do with salvation. So, the beauty, the manner in which is made, the special garment, it was to bring out the specialness of the ministry, the specialness of the character of the person who has been designated to be a priest.
And allow me to also add something I believe is important. The aspect of distinction, we have seen it before, even in the oil of anointing, in the incense, the perfumes that were used. Like you could not come up with the same formula.
Or use it
even
if you knew the formula.
Yeah, even if you knew the formula, it's revealed here.
Yes.
I don't know if it was clear then. Nowadays people have patents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can never know the formula that has made some of the popular drinks and so on. But you could not do that, because that is now blasphemy. That is being sacrilegious, bringing the common, the sacred to the common level. It's the same thing also with these vestments. You could not come up with this outfit. This was a very rich outfit. See, Nick, it says here that in verse 3, that they beat the gold into thin sheets, that is very thin sheets, and then you made threads of gold, and then you wave into it these gold threads. So I want you to imagine the glory of that garment in that afternoon sun, how it gleams with the gold from in between there. I mean, you agree with me, it's quite golden, yeah. And later on, Paul talks in Timothy, is it 1 Timothy 2, where he's talking about, your modesty and your beauty not being, out of braids of gold and so on. It was serious then, because nowadays, when the sisters try to step up, you're like, well, you ain't seen nothing. Because actually what the sisters then could do, it was almost, competing with these. Yeah. They will actually beat out gold into flattened out metals, make threads out of it. And then now you see the popular threads in the market for braiding. Yeah. Yes. Now they wave these golden threads into the hair.
Oh.
And then imagine you're walking into church, Sabbath school morning, with that morning sun. So really all the attention will turn to you. That is why Paul, and I think Peter also speaking about this, that is not the beauty, rather it should be in the inside. This was quite, it will turn the heads, meaning it brings all the attention, but now not to the priest, but to the God whom he represents here, because they were for ministry. They were for ministry. That is very important. Yeah.
Wow. Pastor, or of course, advancing in verse 8, all the way to verse 21. It speaks about the making of the breastplate. Maybe you can try to just describe for us the breastplate and its use.
To put it in today's context, I don't know, maybe who puts on, let's say the people who put a bulletproof vest, you know how small it is, and it covers just the chest. So somehow, something like that, I'm saying something like that. and then there were 3 rows of precious metals, 4 each on every row. Is it 4? Yes. There were 4 rows rather.
Right here.
There were 4 rows of 3 precious metals to represent each special. Each precious metal is to represent a particular tribe, and everything in it is so beautiful. It is there to communicate the will of God, together with the Urim and Thummim that we studied before. So it was put down on top the ephod. It will come and then close and to put on chest, and then there will be an Urim and Thummim on top of it. What we get from Exodus 28, 1 to 43 is now what is being described here again from 8 to 21. So that now these 2 sides are also, now this breastplate is also now tied to the priest in the end. And I just want to appreciate the magnificence once again of this, from even how the order, verse 10, chapter 39, from verse 10 all the way to verse 13. It talks about precious metals that I said last time I have never seen, but I would love to see, just to see and feel how these precious metals, all these were used for ministry. The priest would be like, I am a walking multimillionaire,
Wow.
Like, people put a lot of things. You hear this hair is worth this much, this gold is this much. But, all this was just for ministry. To point out if you do wrong. Hey, the tribe of Dan needs to do something. And then the tribe of Dan, the rock that describes the tribe of Dan would light up. Imagine how much the priest was carrying, literally. He knew this is for ministry. It was not for his own beauty or adornment. He knew he's carrying, like the ephod, he's carrying the shoulders of an entire nation. The 12 tribes, if they did a mistake, imagine if you just saw a light bulb, Levi, what will you do? And yet it's on you. I don't know. So for me, I feel like this was so much responsibility on the priest. And he really had to be careful on what he's doing. No wonder the exactness of what he was required to do.
And of course, communicating the preciousness of these people in the sight of God. They are not represented using some
some building
some common rocks.
It's very, these rocks that are mentioned
the most
here.
precious. No wonder he says, that you're the apple of my eye. Later on, he describes them in very glowing terms, though even in captivity, in their rebellion. But he will talk in a very loving, almost romantic language, talking about the love, the regard, the esteem that he has for them as his people. All this is meant to bring out that picture in its fullness.
Pastor,
Maybe the last thing, maybe before then you take us where you want us to go next, to say that all these things we've been studying about the sanctuary, the fittings in the sanctuary, the components of the sanctuary, the garment of the priest, all these were type of Christ. So that today we don't require a pastor to be
putting on.
Yes, and of course we see in some parts of Christendom where still the ministers want to dress like the priests of the old. But maybe that's a lack of understanding that all these were types of Christ. Christ became the high priest. We don't need to wear these garments anymore. He wore the garment on our behalf. He is interceding for us. And we don't have to have in our churches the altar of incense, the burnt offering, the altar, all those things. When Christ came, he met all that. So now in Christ is all that we're studying here. You can just approach Christ
fulfilled in him.
And your ministry of forgiveness, of repentance, of acceptance can be met in Christ Jesus.
Wow. Now let's take a short break on this discussion, and then when we resume, of course, we'll be looking at much more, the making of the other priestly garments and the work, how it was brought into completion. So stick with us as we take a short break. We'll be back as we continue with this study. Welcome back, our dear viewer. Welcome to this show. Thank you very much for staying with us, and I hope you are now refreshed for as we continue with this segment of this study of the book of Exodus, chapter 39. And here we have looked at various, of course, still into the priestly garments. We have looked at the ephod and the making also of the breastplate. Now we advance to the making of the other priestly garments. What are we talking about here, Pastor Dan?
The rest of the garments which, how will I say, even the Bible calls them the other priestly garments is the heading in my version.
And somebody
here.
would want to assume maybe they not so significant.
I'd almost agree. They are important, but the significance that these others are bearing may not, you may not be able to ascribe fully the same, because really, actually, this is like the dressing now of the priest. If you're joining like the military, this is not a classified secret here. If you're joining the military, you go there, you're supplied with everything, the vest, even the inner wear. Even your panties, you are given that. They're military issue, right? Yeah. You don't, you don't continue with your Calvin Klein or whatever stuff. Yeah. So actually, that is the situation also with the priests here. Everything that they donned, that they wore on their body, you don't come from home with your undergarments and now just don on the over.
That's significant.
Yeah. So really, they may be called other priestly in that sense, like they are now what is really covering your nakedness. It's almost like now more personal what covers you. But that also tells you of their significance. The way they are made, it's interesting. Would you allow me to read
the robe here?
Right here. Well, we can read the robe, but just to bring out this point, I want to read verse 27.
Okay.
To 29, they made tunics, right? Artistically woven of fine linen for Aaron and his sons, a turban of fine linen, exquisite hats of fine linen, short trousers of fine woven linen, a sash. So all these things, they are made, of course, for the covering of the minister, but they're very, very specific and also showing the sacredness. So in other words, you come from home, from your house. It is your duty, you are ministering today, the priest on duty. You come and check out all the garments that you have, and then you don on now the priestly garments. It connotes a totally different status now, a different person almost. Now, if your son comes or your daughter comes now to offer sacrifice, it is no longer daddy. It is no longer son and daughter. It is now a penitent sinner seeking intermediary, intercession through you to the Heavenly Father.
Wow.
Right.
Pastor Nyaga.
I think, again, on top of what Pastor Dana said, to appreciate that those who are serving as priests, they're being provided for everything. This is what we call facilitation.
Right.
So I think the churches out there and the members, they need to facilitate ministers.
He's speaking for
You agree,
yourself.
Pastor, with me? I was saying in an earlier episode that pastors are not paid. Actually, they are facilitated,
Yes,
right here to ensure that you.
and so that actually, it's really we're appreciating that they made for them other garments, including the shorts and everything, so that apart from them having the robe of service, the main sanctuary services, but even when they are relaxing at home, they don't scratch their hands now. I see this is being torn, where they're going to buy another one. They were provided for. And I think churches should not let their pastors until their shoes are torn and you look at your pastors and say, I think we can make our pastors look better than this.
Okay, the
Right.
shoes are okay.
On a light
good,
note,
good.
anyway.
For ministry.
For ministry, for ministry.
Effective ministry,
Because
right.
you need to look presentable.
Yeah, sure.
You see the kind of garment the priests here are wearing.
It's fine linen.
It's fine linen. So why should members feel so good when they are dressed in very smart suits and pastors coming in wash and wear.
Yeah,
It shows something to do actually with the seriousness we give the ministry. But of course, we appreciate those of us come from my church, where below I believe you and the others here belong to. We know pastors are taken care of.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
And we appreciate, we thank
appreciate.
the membership for that. Lest
But could you check on the
assume the ministry,
embellishments,
yes.
Embellishments which are made on these robes, huh?
Yeah,
These
yeah,
other garments, yeah.
yeah, you know, like,
Right.
okay,
It's
after the
24.
apron, which is from verse 22,
Right.
then on them they made on the hem of the pomegranate of
Right.
blue. No, sorry, let me read it again. They made on the hem of the robe pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet, and of fine woven linen. And they made bells of pure gold, that is 25, and put the bells between the pomegranates on the hem of the robe, all around between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe, to minister in, as the Lord had commanded Moses. So, of course, with the rest that you read here.
Right.
And yeah, I really wanted to ask, what was the significance of having the pomegranate and a bell? You know, of course, in school we used to use bells. I don't know if we apply it in the same way when it comes to this ministry.
Right, yeah.
Okay, Pastor Kabira?
Pomegranates were purplish, I think. So. Are they still purplish? I think so.
They should still be.
They should still be. And the bell, but of course, plenty, but with a warning. Plenty, but with a warning. Pomegranates for plentiness, and for, you know, like Pastor Nyage is saying, he will provide. The Lord will provide. And then the bell it's a warning. Once again, you are in holy ministry. You're doing holy work. These bells, when the high priest will get into the most holy place and the bells were no longer ringing, it meant there is something bad. So he had to be pulled out, not you go picking him. When the bells are not ringing, you knew something is bad. So literally they were like a warning that what you're doing is of service. Look at, when you're reading verse 26, I was drawn to the last part of it, all around the hem of the robe, to minister in, as the Lord had commanded. Once again, the emphasis is on, remember, you're doing this for the glory of God. That's why in verse 30, on their heads, it's written, holiness to the Lord. There is an inscription on it with an engraving of a signet that says, holiness to the Lord. The clothes you're wearing, even when you will be using them. I'm imagining a young priest will be like, hey, watch out, look at how I'm cool dressed. You know, like,
cool.
This is gold. Touch and feel how gold touches, you know. But no, that is not your function. They may be other priestly garments, but they are dedicated to the service of God, and they are holy to the Lord. You know, no matter whether you may not think as fancy as they are, no matter, I mean, not fancy, but you may not think of them as important, but they're still holy to the Lord. You know, that scares me a little bit, because even the minutest, you know, even the smallest, he says, even the shorts from, it says the shorts that will be worn from waist to the knee are also part of what is important before the Lord. So it means there is nothing literally that the priest was wearing that was just vanity. Was for the sake of it, you know, like I just need to feel good around. The whole point was not to feel good. For if it helps you in your ministry, then it's relevant. If it does not help you in your ministry, then you should not be wearing it, because if it does not give an idea of holiness to the Lord, in your mind, this turban was put on your head, and this is where holiness, your thoughts, holy to the Lord.
Wow.
So imagine if you are thinking, you are wearing, your ministry, physically you have to wash hands, such that when you get to that tabernacle, literally, you're ready to be able to talk before the Lord.
Wow.
You know, talking of the priesthood now, believers, and that's what exactly Peter says. He brings out the elements of being holy. You're a holy nation, royalty, royal priesthood, different, because it says you're a peculiar people, and special as in that you're a chosen nation. So, you know, in a sense, all these attributes, they really have to draw the attention of the children of Israel to their unique position, but most importantly to the holy God who has called them and set them apart here. Remember, he said that you will be a holy nation to me because I am a holy God. Yeah, we'll be seeing this theme more. in Leviticus.
But again, also on top of, apart from the children of Israel, God is laying more weight on the priest. You see the insignia written holiness
To the Lord.
To the Lord.
Mm.
It spells out the office of the minister. I mean, the garments were enough to tell people this person is holy. His character alone was enough to tell people this person is holy. But God puts up, bold writings on gold, the holiness to the Lord. Gold itself is pure. Then the words are holiness to the Lord, showing that there is a difference between the clergy and the laity. I think the challenge we have today is when ministers are engaging in common activities, like the church members.
Which makes the common church members not to even have that respect.
Respect for the clergy. And that's a big challenge we're having today. Some of the clergy have lowered the standard. They're engaging themselves in common things. We are supposed to be, reserved for holiness in the sanctuary. But the time we leave the sanctuary and we engage ourselves in other activities common to the common members of the church, it will be difficult for us to command respect from them. Because over the week we have interacted with them. So we cannot come on a worship time and put on the gown and then we want to command that respect. I think we'll be dealing more with the book of Leviticus, and we see that the priests were confined within the sanctuary. They were staying there. They were sleeping there, actually. So that today, it has to be very clear. I mean, me as a pastor, it needs to be very clear from my members, this is a man of God.
Sure.
But when members start doubting because of my own behavior, then it's like I've put off that gown, I've removed that crown with the signet that is holiness for the Lord, and so I can engage like a common person.
So now I get that, because now what that means is there is doom coming, and now you appreciate the alternating pomegranates
and the bell.
And the bell, yeah, because they are all alternating along the hem of the garment. I don't know, maybe my fellow pastors could help me out. But other Bible scholars actually say that there was also a golden chain on the ministering priest. Especially the high priest, especially
when
the
they
day of
went to the
atonement.
going.
Right, yeah.
The most holy
Because
place.
you are not hearing the
The
bells
bell.
ringing as he moves about ministering. Then you know he's dead. You can't go in there. So the only thing you can do is to pull
him out.
Chain.
him out. Yeah. So that is a scaring thing. Though I haven't read about that chain around the feet somewhere, but the Bible scholars do bring out that.
Personally, too, I've not encountered that, but perhaps the assumption that not everyone was allowed to get to the most holy place, and of
And
course
it was
they
only the high
say
priest,
they say that was happening during the Day of Atonement, once in a year. And so if even another priest could not get into the most holy place, it's only the high priest and once in a year, then it would have actually made a lot of sense.
Right.
They had a way, in case you go inside, contrary to the will of God,
And you die.
and you die there, then no one can
Nobody
take
will
you.
come in.
So But I think really for our audience, I don't think that we have any biblical evidence on
maybe
that. But it makes a lot of
to-
sense to imagine it could be a chain or something else,
Right.
wherever on mguu or the waist or the neck, wherever. But they had a way of bringing that person out without them defiling themselves within.
Right.
Yeah, wow. And so the work was completed, Pastor.
Oh yeah, finally the work is done, and it's this once again is a summary. It's a stylistic device of Moses. He begins, but every time he ends, he summarizes. Every time Moses writes, by the way, he gives a summary. He talks, then he implements, and then gives a summary
Make
of
a
what
good
is.
teacher.
No, ideally you'll understand why
Right.
he's so humble. You know, for me to repeat something, they even say, I think, I don't know, Pastor Dan is the one who will tell us. 3 times it gets into your mind. If you repeat something 3 times or something like that, that's what I hear they say.
That's true.
If you say do and then I don't know something like that for 3 times, it gets in your mind. But of course, from verse 32 to verse 41 is a summary of everything. It may have looked tedious. You know, I'm sure even the viewers were asking, why are we redoing this again and again? And here is about another chance
Right.
to also redo it again.
Right.
But in real essence, you can see how seriously Moses is taking these things. He says, and you know, for him to write for the next generation. Remember, not everybody went, I mean, not apart from the 2 who got to Canaan.
Yeah.
If he had not written this and repeated it again, how much more would, how much mistakes will be there? You've heard about people giving information by word of mouth. I talk to you, by the time you talk to Pastor Dan, by the
It's
time you
changed,
it's
changes
different.
again.
So for Moses to repeat it almost 3 times, word for word, that this was done, I want to appreciate his need for us to properly record and do what God had said. And so now, verse 32 and verse 41 summarizes and says, everything was done exactly as how God had commanded. That is what 42 and 43 will talk
Yeah.
about.
Wow. Wow.
That's all the while. I just like the way it's open. And of course, this, for those who are keen on Bible scholarship, these are some of the evidences of Moses' authorship.
Yes.
In Genesis, you know, the language.
Yeah.
You know, you remember in creation, you know, that's all
Yeah.
the works, you
Yes.
know, were done here. So that is exactly what he says here. That's all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting was finished. The children of Israel did according to all that the Lord had commanded Moses.
So they
So
they
they did.
did, yeah. So for me, this is a language of compliance, utter compliance,
Yeah.
as in like a very strict obedience to the command of the Lord.
It's literally saying, God is my witness. I have done
I mean,
what you asked.
I have done. Just look at this. We have checked, we recheck. I mean, everything is done exactly
Wow.
as per the blueprint.
Okay, and of course, you know, he looks at it, and again, it comes back to. Of course, we've talked about going back to Genesis, and this verse 42, which I would want to repeat again, and 43. According to all that the Lord had commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did all the work. Then Moses looked over all the work, and indeed they had done it, as the Lord had commanded. Just so they had done it, and Moses blessed them. Pastor Nyagai.
The emphasis here is on obedience to the dictates of God. That's what Moses is emphasizing here. That they did not turn either left or right from what God had given. They were keen to follow. And so we learn that then what God has commanded us, we need to be careful not to turn to the left or to the right. But also I will end so that my brothers can come in with the last sentence, of the 4 words. And Moses blessed them. To me, that's a lot about leadership. That even when you have delegated and supervised and work has been done well, it's going to turn back to the team and appreciate them. I think even God appreciates. He says, you come and say, well done, faithful servant. It is good in leadership always to appreciate the people that you're working with, if you're a pastor, always keep on appreciating the members who are voluntarily serving in the church every time. Don't be a complaining and reprimanding pastor every time.
Right.
But appreciate the small things that members are doing in the cause of God. In fact, if they would let you do it alone, you wouldn't manage it.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's not coincident, by the way, that we have those 4 words as ending that chapter. And Moses blessed them. And you know they're coming within a backdrop where we're being told that Moses supervised and he was content that it has been done the way he had instructed, as the Lord had instructed. So he blesses them, says, thank you, may God continue blessing because being so faithful in the work of God.
Wow.
It is important for us pastors, such kind of ones to be, heard coming out of our lips, and for any other church leader to thank members who are supporting faithfully the work of God.
Wow, thank you for those remarks, Pastor Dan.
Right here, the aspect of delegation. Delegation does not mean
Absconding.
Absconding duty.
Yeah.
The buck still stops with Moses. Remember how we said earlier that Moses did this, Moses built the tabernacle, then Bezalel built the tabernacle. But really now you get the full picture here.
Yes.
Everybody was doing their part. Everybody was doing it. Because now, after verse 32 says, and the children of Israel did according to all the Lord had done, now verse 33 tells us, and they brought the tabernacle to Moses. Now, then he starts enumerating all the other things they brought.
Checklist.
You can get, it's 100% of everything they made. From verse 33 down all the way to 41, they are enumerating. So I can imagine the checklist.
Yeah, checklist, okay.
Yeah, so we start, the clasps, check, the boards, check,
The pillars.
bars. They go down, the coverings of rams, the tables, the utensils, the showbread. They check everything.
Lampstand is there.
I mean, until they come to the garments of ministry for Aaron, we just read here, and Moses said, check.
Done.
Yeah.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
So really, it takes responsibility. If there was anything that had not been, that had not complied with the standards, then he'd have pointed it out here.
Wow.
Very important aspect in leadership, the aspect of delegation. And then, of course, I just want to echo quickly, the blessing, appreciation, very important, not only in leadership as church, at our homes, and in an organization.
We need to
appreciate.
Pastor
Wow.
Kabira, your final remarks now.
I just love, when Pastor Dan was speaking, I just thought of, have you done the things I asked you to do as according to the Lord I done? I say, yeah, let me see. I just thought of, then they brought the tabernacle to Moses. It was so complete, like this is tabernacle, because the next chapter is when it will say, he's standing up, we may think tabernacle, it's like the entire, but he just brought everything down, just ready to just open it up.
Yeah.
I can just imagine the order and everybody in charge. You are to make this. Is it done? Yes, it's done. It's done. It's done. And then you take to your superiors, your supervisors. They confirm it's done. So I can imagine here it's Akine Bezalel and the other one. Literally taking. They have now. And Moses also does another check. It's done. It's done. It's done. And then he says like, wow. You people, I think you've done what God said. I have done. Some of us may say Moses did not do that work. But really he did, because he was the one who was checking, the looking at things if they're done right is actually what is more important. I believe so. I always see when an architect draws a plan, we say he built the house, but in real sense, the people who are building, but him coming, I have seen when we were building and somebody will come and like, no, it's not supposed to be there. I'm like, what do you mean it's not supposed to be there? Just by looking at it, he knows it's not supposed to be there, it's not right, it's not placed. And then, so he's literally building. He's like the standard. But here we've got Moses' standard. But as everybody's saying, he appreciates that he could not do this alone. And so he just says, a big thank you to everybody who participated, and says, guys, let's meet when we'll be putting this thing up.
Wow. Thank you. And of course, it's Yeah, of course, we've come to the end of the making. Now we are getting into now, when we meet next time, of course, it will be, let's now have the structure up. Because everything has come as pieces, the altars and the garments and everything in pieces. Now it's about putting them up and to see whether they fit, and will God really approve of their work? We'll meet and talk about that.